You're not meant to walk away. You're meant to fight for me, she shouted after locking lips with another man at the gathering just to spark my jealousy. I answered, well done. You turned me into something better, available. Then I left. She chased me to the vehicle, slamming her hands against the glass. I pulled out of the lot. Hey everyone, before we continue with the story, please subscribe to the channel and tap the like button if you'd like more tales like this one. Appreciate it. The bass from the speakers pulsed dully in my ribs, and the atmosphere inside Jake's place was heavy with the smell of beer and drugstore cologne. I was scanning the rooms for Qley, holding a fresh drink I'd grabbed for her as a small olive branch. We'd already gone through the usual argument on the drive over. You're lost in your thoughts tonight. You're not really here with me. I exhaled and told her I was simply worn out from the office. That was the wrong reply. The correct one was supposed to be some dramatic, instant display. Pull over, stare into her eyes, and swear her the stars. But after half a decade, every star I'd ever promised sat gathering dust in some mental storage unit. I was out of big gestures. All I had left was a lukewarm beer and the hope that the party noise would bury the tension. That's when I spotted her across the packed living room, out on the dim balcony. Her back faced the glass, blonde strands catching the weak glow of the streetlight below. Standing in front of her was Mark, the guy from her cycling class, all slick grins and open posture. He leaned closer. Qley leaned in to meet him. It wasn't sudden. It was a slow, intentional meeting. My feet locked in place. People near the balcony door noticed. A few cheers cut through the music. Someone called out, "Go for it, Mark." But her expression, that's what froze the moment into something nauseating. As their mouths touched, her eyes, those striking hazel ones I'd gazed into for 5 years, drifted over his shoulder. They found me in the crowd. They locked on. And she didn't pull back in shock or shame. She held the kiss. She held my stare. A challenge, a statement. My stomach didn't fall. It hardened into something icy and solid. This wasn't an accident. This was a staged performance, and I was the target audience. I'd seen this production before, only in different outfits. A memory cut through, sharp and clear. Discovering a wrinkled restaurant receipt in her jeans pocket a year earlier. Table for 2. The Oceanair. $180. A male co-worker's name written on the tip line. My pulse had raced. I showed it to her, voice tight with pain. She took it, face arranged into pure innocence, then fake astonishment. Oh, that. Come on, Leo. It was a group celebration. His card got declined, so I covered it and he sent me the money through Venmo. You're not actually jealous, are you? I'd been so relieved I bought her flowers the next day, big, costly lilies. Wrong move. She stayed distant for a week. Later, during an argument, she spat it out. You should have been furious. You should have demanded to know why he was buying me dinner. The flowers just made you look soft, like you were rewarding me. The game, always the game, and I'd failed to play it right again. The kiss on the balcony ended. Mark, looking satisfied, murmured something near her ear. She laughed that bright, artificial laugh she used when performing, then glanced my way once more. The message was obvious, your turn. The cold hardness in my gut spread through my blood. The party noise faded into a far-off buzz. I set the 2 beers I'd been carrying carefully onto a nearby shelf. I felt strangely steady. The confusion, the burning sting of betrayal, it was present but buried under layers of this new, freezing clarity. I walked to the balcony door. The small group parted, sensing a scene. I slid the glass open. Cool night air touched my face. Mark noticed me first. His smirk slipped. He at least had the grace to look like a kid caught stealing cookies and took a half step back. Qley turned. Her cheeks were pink, eyes bright with adrenaline and triumph. She was ready for the explosion. She wanted it. Leo, she said, voice mixing defiance with fake surprise. There you are. I've been looking for you. I didn't glance at Mark. Leave, I said, tone flat. He didn't need a second invitation, melting back into the party like smoke. Now it was only the 2 of us on the balcony. Distant city sounds filled the quiet between us. What? She demanded, arms folded. You've been distant all evening. Don't look at me like that. Like what? Like I just committed some crime. It was only a joke, Leo, to snap you out of it. She stepped closer. Her scent, the perfume I'd given her for her birthday, hit me. It felt like an intrusion. See, she said, a small, victorious smile on the same lips that had just been on Mark. Now I have your attention. Was that so difficult? A joke, a wake-up call. The script was so familiar it was almost sad. The receipt, the accidental texts from old flames left visible on her phone, the stories about men approaching her at the gym. They were all signals fired into the sky, demanding I scramble the jets and rush to her rescue. To prove my devotion through the heat of my jealousy, and I always had, until tonight. The last bits of emotional static cleared, the picture was sharp and it was ugly. I looked at her, the woman I once thought I'd build a future with, and felt only a deep, tired distance. She mistook my silence for stunned speechlessness, for the start of an outburst. She pushed further. Well, aren't you going to speak, or are you just going to stand there sulking? I drew a slow breath. The cold inside me was complete, it was calm. Congratulations, I said, voice quiet, steady, and empty of the fire she craved. You made me into something better, single. Her triumphant smile disappeared. Confusion, then disbelief, then rage crossed her face in quick succession. I didn't wait for her next line. I turned my back and walked toward the door. Leo, her voice sliced through the night, sharp and ordering. Where do you think you're going? I slid the door open and stepped back into the wall of sound. I didn't look behind me. Hey, you're not supposed to leave, she yelled, her voice chasing me as I moved through the crowd toward the exit. People were watching. You're supposed to compete. Her words, shouted across a full room, hung in the air, the final, naked rule of her world. I wasn't a partner, I was a contestant. And I had just stepped off the stage in silence, microphone dropped. The last thing I heard as I pulled the apartment door closed, muffling the music and the chaos, was her voice shifting from command into a desperate plea. If you walk out that door. We're finished, the latch clicked. The hallway was quiet. I took the stairs 2 at a time, the cool stillness of the stairwell feeling like release. The cold night air of the parking lot struck me cleanly. It carried none of her perfume, none of the party's stale warmth. I focused on the simple steps, find the car, unlock it, get inside. My hands were steady. The frantic pounding of my heart from the balcony had slowed into a deliberate rhythm. It wasn't panic. It was a funeral march for something that had already died long before this night. I heard the stairwell door slam open behind me. Leo, stop! Her heels clicked a frantic rhythm on the asphalt. I didn't speed up. I didn't slow down. I reached my car, pressed the unlock button, and slid into the driver's seat. The familiar smell of leather and last week's spilled coffee welcomed me, a reality that still belonged to me. I shut the door just as she arrived. The thud of her palms against the window made me flinch, one last physical echo of the shock she'd aimed at me. Open the door. Her voice was muffled but sharp through the glass. Her face pressed close, mascara beginning to streak under eyes wide with fresh panic. You're overreacting. It meant nothing. I put the key in the ignition. The dashboard lights came on, familiar, ordinary. The fuel gauge was low. I made a mental note to fill up the next day. Leo, listen to me. She was pounding again, a rapid, frantic beat. You're really going to throw away 5 years over a stupid kiss? A kiss. It was to make you jealous, you idiot. Because I love you. The word, shouted through glass, carried the weight of a feather. It meant nothing. It was just another tool in the game. Say, I love you to force the reaction. I looked at her, really looked. The beautiful, furious, terrified face of the woman who had just staged my public humiliation as a test of loyalty. I felt a distant ache, like recalling the plot of a sad film I'd watched years ago. But I didn't feel what she wanted. I was already gone. I started the engine. The soft vibration moved through the seat. Her expression broke. The anger melted into pure, unscripted fear. The performance was over. This was real. She hadn't written this part. Please, she screamed, breath fogging the glass. Leo, please, I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry, just open the door. We can talk about this. Sorry. The word she'd used as a weapon before. Sorry you made me do that. Sorry you can't take a joke. Sorry you're so sensitive. This sorry sounded different. It was the sorry of consequences, not control. It was too late. I shifted into reverse, movements calm and exact. I checked the mirrors. Don't you dare, she shrieked, fists pounding harder. If you drive away, it's over, for real. You'll never see me again. Do you hear me? You're making a mistake. I lifted my foot from the brake. The car began to roll backward. She stumbled, trying to keep up for a step, her hands sliding off the glass. For a second, our eyes met through the window. Her face was a mask of pure, bewildered devastation. She hadn't lost her boyfriend. She'd lost her audience. Her favorite player had quit the league. I turned the wheel, shifted into drive, and pulled away. In the rearview mirror, I watched her standing alone under the orange glow of a parking lot light. She grew smaller and smaller, a solitary figure in a too-short dress, arms hanging limp, until I turned the corner and she vanished from sight. The silence inside the car was enormous. It wasn't empty. It was full. For the first time in years, the quiet wasn't something that needed to be anxiously filled with a promise or a grand gesture. It was simply peace. It was mine. I drove straight to my apartment, not our apartment. She'd never officially moved in, but her presence had occupied the space. The throw pillows she'd chosen, the specific brand of fancy hand soap by the sink. The drawer stuffed with her hair ties and forgotten lip glosses. I walked in and stood in the middle of the living room. I didn't cry, I didn't smash anything, I just breathed. Then I got to work. I took an empty cardboard box from a recent delivery. I started in the bathroom, her shampoo, her expensive face creams, the pink razor into the box. I cleared the drawer, hair ties, bobby pins, 2 tubes of that lip gloss. The living room, a novel she was reading, a charging cable she'd left behind. The kitchen, her favorite mug, a half-empty bag of the coffee she preferred. It was a clinical, unhurried process. With each item, the cold certainty inside me warmed a little, not with feeling for her, but with the reclaiming of space. My space. My phone, which I'd silenced at the party, lit up on the counter. A flood of notifications. Qley, 12 missed calls. Qley, call me. Qley, we need to talk. Qley, you're being childish. Qley, I'm sorry. Please. Qley, answer your phone. I didn't. I picked up the phone, opened her contact, and blocked her. Then Instagram, block, Facebook, block. It wasn't anger, it was digital housekeeping. I was drawing a border. I set the sealed box by the front door. I'd drop it at her place the next day. Then I sat on my now clear couch in the deep quiet and stared at the wall. The betrayal replayed, but it felt distant. The strongest feeling wasn't pain. It was exhaustion, a deep bone-level fatigue from a 5-year contest I had never signed up for. And beneath that, something fragile and new, relief. The first week was a study in silence, the kind that feels loud after years of constant emotional storms. I went to work. I came home. I cooked simple meals for one. I started reading a book that had sat untouched on my nightstand for a year. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I simply existed. And in that existence, I began to remember who I was when I wasn't bracing for the next test. Messages started arriving through the last remaining cracks. Mutual friends. Jake, the party host. Hey man, heard about the drama. Qley's a wreck. She's saying it was just a dumb prank that got out of hand. You know how she is. Might be worth hearing her out. I stared at the text. You know how she is. The universal excuse for people who treat love like a combat sport. I typed back a simple, unemotional truth. I do know how she is. I'm done. He didn't answer. Then from her best friend, Sarah, Leo, I'm not taking sides, but she's really devastated. She's crying constantly. She knows she messed up big time. Can't you just talk to her? The manipulation was second-hand now, filtered through a messenger, crying all the time, devastated. The goal was clear, trigger my protector instinct. Pull me back into the arena with the promise of comforting her from the pain she herself had caused. I saw the trap with perfect clarity. My closure was walking out. She'll have to find her own. Sarah, that's cold, dude, after 5 years. I didn't reply. I wasn't cold. I was sterile. I was healing, and I couldn't risk infection. The grapevine, which I didn't tend but couldn't completely avoid, began producing bitter fruit. A coworker who knew someone in Qley's spin class mentioned awkwardly by the coffee machine, so apparently your ex and that Mark guy are a thing now. I took a sip. Okay, he seemed surprised by my lack of reaction. Yeah, I guess it happened pretty fast, huh? I wouldn't know, I said and meant it. The next update a few weeks later was more detailed. Sarah, perhaps hoping for a reaction, sent a more dramatic message. I guess you got what you wanted. She's a mess. Mark used her for a couple of weeks and then ghosted her. Told her she was too intense. Real classy guy you let her run to. The blame shifting was impressive. You let her run to? As if my refusal to participate was an act of sabotage, I didn't answer. But the poetic justice was noted. The prop in her play had rejected the leading actress for overacting. The final social update came through Jake again, who'd been mostly quiet. Ran into Qley at the store. Looks rough. She's kind of burning bridges, yelling at everyone for not taking her side. It's a mess. Anyway, hope you're doing okay, man. The report was clinical, but the subtext was clear. Her support system, the same audience that had cheered her performance, was growing tired of the endless one-woman show. The drama no longer had a target, so it was spilling onto everyone nearby. Too intense. Meanwhile, my own life was undergoing a quiet renovation. I joined a gym, not for revenge fitness, but because I finally had time and needed an outlet. I reconnected with an old college friend for a beer and talked about baseball and work, not relationships. I deep-cleaned my apartment. The box had been delivered the day after the party, left on her doorstep with no note. I'd driven away before she could appear. One Saturday afternoon, about a month in, I was putting together a new bookshelf. Something with clean, modern lines, not the rustic look she would have insisted on. Sunlight poured through the bare windows. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. Part of me already knew. I let it go to voicemail. An hour later, a notification appeared. Voicemail received. I finished tightening a bolt, wiped my hands, and played it. Her voice was thinner, stripped of its usual theatrical edge. It was just shaky and sad. "Leo, hi, it's me. I miss you. I've been doing a lot of thinking. That night I was so stupid. I was scared you were falling out of love with me." A long pause, a trembling breath. "Mark was nothing, a mistake, you're everything. Can we please just talk? Get coffee?" I saved the voicemail not as a keepsake, but as evidence of the shift. The manipulation was still present. I was scared, but it was undercut by a genuine tremor of loss. It didn't move me. It felt like listening to a recording of a storm from inside a solid, warm house. I deleted it, then I blocked the number. The quiet dignity wasn't a strategy. It was simply a state of being. By refusing to compete, I had removed myself from her game completely. And from the peaceful sidelines, I watched as the game, deprived of its main opponent, began to devour itself. The voicemail was a tremor. The earthquake arrived on a Tuesday evening 2 weeks later. I was at the gym, halfway through a set of deadlifts. The burn in my muscles was a clean, honest pain. It had become my new sanctuary, a place of repetition and clear progress. No games, only gravity. I saw her reflection in the mirror before I saw her directly, a flash of blonde near the water fountain. Qley. She wore yoga pants and a hoodie, but not the polished matching set she used to choose. This looked thrown on, defensive. Her eyes locked on me, red-rimmed and hollow. I finished the set, re-racked the weight with a controlled clang, and reached for my towel. I didn't approach her. I didn't flee, I simply acknowledged her presence with a slow turn. She walked over, steps hesitant. The gym noise, the clank of plates, the grunts, the heavy bass from the speakers, felt like a shield. "Leo," she said, her voice was raw, scraped thin. "Can we talk, please, just for a minute?" I wiped my neck with the towel. "This isn't a good place. It's the only place I could find you. You blocked me everywhere." The victim tone was creeping in. She took a ragged breath, trying to reset. "I got the box, thank you for bringing it." I said nothing. There was nothing to say. "I listened to your voicemail," I finally said, not out of kindness, but to state a fact and move things forward. "My answer is the same." Her face crumpled, then quickly tightened into anger. The sadness was only a layer. Underneath was the familiar fuse. "You think you're so mature, so above it all," she hissed, stepping closer. Other gym-goers were subtly looking away, tuning into the drama. "You just quit. That's all this is. You're a quitter." I was trying to make us stronger. To feel something real. This was the old script, but the delivery was unhinged, stripped of theatrical polish. This was pure, toxic honesty. "You wanted a reaction," I said, voice flat. "You got one. I wanted you to fight for me," she shouted, voice cracking. A few people stared openly. "I wanted you to show you cared. Instead, you just left, like I was nothing. Like we were nothing. You made us nothing," I said, the words calm and heavy. "On that balcony, you turned it into a public audition. I didn't want the part." Her eyes widened. The logic, spoken back so plainly, seemed to short-circuit her prepared arguments. The anger surged to fill the gap. It was ugly and complete, the final stripping away of the romantic drama queen persona. "You were lucky to have me," she spat, jabbing a finger toward my chest. I didn't flinch. "You'll never find anyone who loves you as much as I did. You know why? Because you're boring, Leo. You're safe. You're a comfortable couch. And now you're alone because you're too proud to admit you overreacted to a little jealousy game." There it was, the core confession. A little jealousy game, my life, my heart. A bored game to her. I felt nothing, no hurt, no rage. only a distant, academic interest in watching a creature trapped in its own venom. I looked past her toward the front desk where Kevin, the manager, was watching with raised eyebrows. I lifted one hand slightly in a one-moment gesture. Then I looked back at Qley, who was breathing hard, triumphant in her outburst, waiting for the counterattack, for the fight she still craved. I didn't give it to her. I turned and walked toward the front desk. She stood frozen, confused. I leaned over the counter and spoke quietly to Kevin. "Hey, Kevin, sorry about that. Could you check if that woman by the racks is a member? If she's not, she's harassing me, and I'd appreciate it if you asked her to leave." Kevin, a big guy who'd seen everything, nodded once. "On it, Leo, you good?" "I'm fine," I said and meant it. I turned and walked toward the locker room. I didn't look back. I heard Kevin's low, firm voice behind me. "Excuse me, ma'am. Can I help you?" And the sharp, incredulous intake of her breath. I showered in the empty locker room, hot water washing away the sweat but not the encounter, that I didn't need to wash away. It was already hardening into a lesson. I had my final, definitive answer. The woman I had loved was a fiction. The real one was a sore loser screaming in a gym. 6 months to the day after the party, I attended my friend Ben's wedding. It was a low-key backyard celebration. I was there with Mara, a woman I'd been seeing for about 3 months. We met in a bookstore. She was sharp, quietly funny, and carried a deep, calming emotional steadiness. Being with her felt like speaking my native language after years of trying to decode a chaotic cipher. We laughed easily. There were no tests. I'd heard through the thinning grapevine that Qley had been invited. Ben's fiancée, Lisa, had been a peripheral friend of hers. I hadn't given it a second thought. I saw her the moment we walked in. She stood alone near the makeshift bar, holding a glass of white wine. She looked thinner. The vibrant, attention-commanding energy she used to radiate was gone, replaced by a watchful, tense stillness. Her eyes found me instantly, then flicked to Mara, who was smiling at something Ben's grandmother said. I saw the calculation in Qley's gaze, the rapid assessment. Mara, with her intelligent eyes and easy smile, her hand resting lightly on my arm. The upgrade wasn't only visual, it was atmospheric. We looked peaceful. The reception moved along, dinner, toasts, dancing. I danced with Mara, a slow, simple sway. I was aware of Qley watching from the shadows of the porch, a silent sentinel of her own regret. I didn't feel smug. I felt nothing about her presence at all. She was simply another guest. Later, Mara went to the restroom. I drifted to the bar for a glass of water. I felt her approach before I saw her. "You look happy." Her voice was close, drained of all its former music. I turned. She stood there clutching her empty wine glass. Her gaze searched my face for cracks, for any trace of the old Leo. "I am," I said. No qualifier, no thanks. Just a statement of fact, as undeniable as the weather. She flinched just slightly. My indifference was a colder rejection than any hatred could have been. "I get it now," she said, the words tumbling out in a rehearsed rush. "What I did, I ruined everything. I don't expect you to take me back. I'm not that delusional anymore." She tried a shaky smile that never reached her eyes. I need you to know I'm sorry, really, truly sorry. Not for the game, for not seeing you, for not seeing what I had until I made you throw it away." It was the best apology she had ever managed, abject, self-aware, stripped of justification. It was designed to disarm, to force me into the role of the gracious forgiver, to re-establish some connection, however painful. I looked at her. I saw the ghost of the girl I'd once fallen for now haunting the face of this tired, lonely woman, but the ghost held no power over me. "Qley," I said, voice even and final. "It's okay," she blinked, hope flared for a millisecond in her hollow eyes. "You wanted a reaction," I continued. "You got one, it just wasn't the one you wanted." I took a sip of water. "That person you were trying to provoke, the one who'd chase you, compete for you, turn your drama into proof of his love." I shook my head, a faint, distant smile on my lips. "He's gone." "I don't miss him." Her face went ashen. The last of the hope died. She understood this wasn't punishment, it was evolution. I had evolved past the need for her, past the games, past the entire ecosystem of our relationship. I was living in a different world. "Ready to go?" Mara's warm voice came from beside me. She slipped her hand into mine and gave Qley a polite, neutral nod. "The Uber's 2 minutes away." "Perfect," I said, squeezing her hand. I turned back to Qley one last time. There was no triumph in my eyes, no lingering hurt. There was nothing for her at all. She was a closed chapter, a solved equation. "Take care of yourself," I said. It was the most impersonal, conclusive phrase in the language. I turned with Mara, and we walked away through the twinkling lights of the backyard toward the quiet street. I didn't look back. I didn't wonder what she was doing. I didn't think about her at all. Outside, the night air was cool and clean. Myra rested her head on my shoulder. "You okay?" she murmured. I breathed in deeply, looking up at the sparse stars. The silence between us was companionable, full of a future we were both curious about. "Yeah," I said, and it was the truest word I'd ever spoken. "I really am. The past was a country I no longer lived in. I was